Hello, Bambaji here with another overview of the sun's transits. And today we're looking at gate 5 on the 3rd of December at 1:34 a.m. That's right, AM, isn't it? GMT is what I meant to say. The sun moves into gate 5, which is the gate of waiting, the gate of fixed rhythms. Now you can see it here in the slide that I'm showing you. Gate 5 is a sacral gate. This is the 4th sacral gate in a row that we've had, and it's pointing upwards towards the G center, and it's harmonic, the gate 15, which is the gate of extremes and also the love of humanity. And they create the channel of rhythm, which is a design of being in the flow. And we're still in the logic collective circuit of sharing, as we were with gate 9 that we looked at last. And you can also see the grounding here is coming through gate 35, which is another throat center gate. And that's that brown square. So you can see both of those there on the slide. Okay, let us dig in. Gate 5, the gate of waiting. This is a gate that has an extraordinary impact in the world of design, and not solely in the world of human design, but in the world of mammalian design and the design of flora, the design of reptiles and fish and birds. Because everywhere you look, right down to the single cell, the one commonality is this extraordinary channel between the 15 and the 5. If you look at the nature of the single cell in each and every one of us, each single cell in its design only has the 515 and the 33. So right down to the cellular level, this channel, this 15-5, 515, which way around, it's a dominant theme that runs throughout all of our lives. It's a channel of rhythm, the rhythm that is universal to life. And it brings us to one of the first things to understand about life and the nature of life, which is that despite the fact that we have abstract circuitry that can convince us of the illusion of what we experience, namely that there is chaos in the world, the underlying reality of what life is based deeply and solidly on logic. This is the generation of this logical life force, this 5th gate coming out of the sacral center. This is one of the primary generative forces that are literally out there in the world, everywhere, transforming our world. The 5th gate represents patterns. It is the gate of fixed rhythms. And wherever we find rhythm in any of these lines, as we look through them over the next few days, you can change the word pattern for rhythm. And Raz said this is what he's talking about. So it's the gate of fixed rhythms in the sense that it is a pattern that fixes. And wherever you want to look for diversity on our planet, you begin with the 5th gate. So the headline says, it's above the lines in the Rave I Ching, the fundamental attunement to natural rhythms, waiting as an active state of awareness. This channel in and of itself is essential for life. There's no life without this life force. And the way in which these gates are expressed is in their deep longing for each other, for the harmonic. So the 15 for the 5 and the 5 for the 15. It is very difficult to just have one of these gates and not the whole channel. Difficult in the sense that the power of the conditioning of what you don't have is extraordinary. It can be very uncomfortable. People with the 5th gate who meet somebody who has the 15th gate, despite the fact that it's an electromagnetic connection, it can be very disturbing. This is true as well for someone who has the 15th gate to suddenly be pulled into a specific pattern, because the 15 is the gate of extremes. It doesn't want the fixed pattern. So it's a very odd match in a way. But it's uncomfortable for either of them when they meet their opposite, whilst also at the same time having this deep longing for it. So the temptation of the conditioning is enormous. If you have the 5th gate coming out of a defined sacral center, you generate a set pattern in your life. And it is this set pattern that is so important for you. Generators, you know this, generators are here to respond. This is the main thematic of a generator, here to respond, not to initiate. And life is a logical response in the sense that, the way in which we respond to life is that we establish a pattern. And it is this fifth gate that establishes our patterns, our habits, our rituals. Obviously, the only way you're going to establish the correct pattern is if you are operating correctly as yourself, with a defined sacral as a generator, of course. And it doesn't matter what the configuration of the design is going to be, but the minute you have that fifth gate in a defined sacral, you're only going to be able to have the right pattern if you're operating correctly. Mostly, of course, we deal with the world of the not self, bringing us the distortion of the patterns of what life can be. And we have no idea how beautiful the process of life can be, because the vast majority of sacral beings who carry an active fifth gate are not operating correctly and therefore do not have the right pattern in their life. This is a gate that has tremendous significance if it's in your design. The not self strategy for the open sacral center is not knowing when enough is enough. And if you have the fifth gate active in an open sacral center with the deep pressure of the conditioning that can come from that 15th gate, you can end up getting caught up in a rhythm or a life force that is not for you. And you can stay there for so long, way too long, because you don't know when enough is enough. And so you fall out of what is your essential flow. This is the thematic of the channel, to be in the flow that binds all life forms together through universal rhythm. And it all goes back to its generative source. To be correct, to have the right pattern, to live with the habits that are correct for you, well, it's all about operating correctly as yourself. The patterns and habits of a fixed daily rhythm are natural and individual, and they are not imposed from the outside. The 515 is a tantric channel, and they are all about the empowerment of the self. No other channel in design has the significance of the 515 with its power to fix the pattern. Having habits and fixed patterns is not about establishing anything through awareness. This is a mechanical gate. Sacral is not aware. The role of awareness is to not identify with concepts that try to alter the natural pattern. If it is natural for you to eat 7 o'clock in the morning, then nothing should be allowed to interfere with that pattern. We have come from gate 9, the format energy, to be focused and concentrated. The 6th line was gratitude, the recognition that for detail to really be at its best, step by step is the only way, and that to be focused and to be really able to succeed in focus is to accept the small victories for each of those steps, one by one. And that has led us to this 5th gate of waiting, which is the keynote for so many of us, but generators waiting to respond. And one of the keynotes for you to keep in mind, really, as we are dealing with this 5th gate and we're going through the lines, is the keynote of habits, which you could also substitute for rituals. It's a very important part of this 5th gate to focus on the pattern. But it's also to have the awareness that you cannot focus all day, every day. That's not going to work. That's going to burn you out. You're going to get exhausted. It's not a natural rhythm. There must be a pattern. And the pattern is the rhythm in life itself. And it's necessary to develop good habits around our rhythms. You work for an hour at a time and then you take a break. Because then when you come back, you're fresh and you feel good. And then you have the ability to be able to focus successfully. It's based on having that focus incorporated in a healthy way into the life habit or the life ritual. I have the gate 15, and I also have gate 9. No 5, of course. So I'm a projector, not a generator. And so my conditioning is to fix a pattern when actually I'm here to not fix a pattern. That's not my path. I'm more extreme. So I try and focus on I work for an hour and then I have a break. I set my alarm and then I have a break. And it's so hard. It's so hard. Even when I know when I come back to work after having had a break, and I have a defined ego as well, so I really need to make sure I take my rests. I'm so much more focused when I come back, but still fixing in that rhythm of an hour and then a break, an hour and then a break. Oh, I could do it for a couple of days. And then it's like, no, I can't do it anymore. So it's got to fit with your design. It's got to be correct for you. So this gate of waiting, it is in the waiting that everything happens. It's like in the gap between the notes is where the mutation comes. It's in the waiting that things happen. Ra said that we are all waiters in the cosmic restaurant of life. We are all waiting to do service, all of us. We have different roles to play in this life. We have different types. But in the end, it's all about waiting because we are not creative. We are reactive. We are all reacting to this program that is all around us. All of us have been conditioned from day one to think that we are creative, that we are responsible for what is created through us. We are bombarded with the notion that it's up to us to make things happen, and we have to take responsibility for everything. And this is all the propaganda of the program because it keeps us locked into a particular pattern. And of course, nobody really wants to wait. It's one of the most difficult things for all types. When you first come into design, it's like, wait, why? But there are so many generators in the world, 70% of the world, generator types. And so important to how the world operates. We have no life without generators. And therefore, operating correctly in this life is so important. And it's very difficult to imagine a life of waiting when you've been conditioned all of your life to be a creative, responsible force. Rhythm is the miracle of what it is to be alive. If you have the 5th gate, pay attention to your life and see what your natural rhythm is, and then fix it in your routine. If you discover that every day at 4 o'clock you like a siesta and you need that hour of rest because it's important for you to function correctly in the world, when you recognize that it's an important rhythm in your life, fix it in. Make it a habit, make it a ritual, which doesn't mean you have to dress it up in any particular way. It's not about putting it in a box and it's just make sure that it's there for you, that it's what you have and it supports you and you commit to that. And when you realize that this is your ritual and natural rhythm for you, then you can see how you're using your energy properly and correctly. And it's important for the 5 to be ritualistic in that sense, to recognize the many rhythms that are there and to fix those rhythms for yourself. In this form of waiting, fixing your natural rhythm is an active state of awareness. The moment that you are following your fixed natural rhythm, anything is possible because the energy is right. And when the energy is right, the logic process says anything is possible. And so the grounding for this sun transit through gate 5 is in the earth in gate 35. This is called progress, the gate of change. It tells us that by design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. Well, like gate 5, gate 35 is collective, but it's on the sensing side, the abstract side. So they both have the keynote of sharing and being dependent on interaction. But on one side, the 5, we have this logical, experimental process, and the 35 is abstract and experiential. So we have a balance here, in a way, between these two gates. The format energy for the logical circuit, as we know from gate 9, which we've just come from, it's about focus, it's about concentration. And the format for the abstract circuit is cyclical. It's beginnings and endings. And in many ways, the natural rhythm of life is cyclical. There's many ways, maybe in all ways, actually. Everything has its beginnings and its endings. It's only logical that anything that comes into form will eventually change, progress through its cycle, and leave the form. And yet we have the gate of change supporting the gate of fixed habits and fixed rhythms. So as we go through this transit together over the next few days, let's see if we can pick that apart and yeah, make sense out of it in true abstract formula. Thank you for joining me for this overview for the very beautiful Gate 5 and its fixed rhythms. And yeah, I will see you for line 1, which is coming up very shortly. Yeah, and till then, you know what? Love yourself and go gently.